All right, so now we done got majority of the games over for the series. Round one, I was like, I know we still got Golden State Rockets. We still got Knicks, Pistons, or whatever. So this came out before that, as you can sort of see. Yeah, while we got that going on, I was like, got a video of Lakers and Timberwolves because I was like, that one really more so irate me. I see more of that series compared to the other ones. Oh, we also got Nuggets and Clippers. Also, my bad, forgot. Calm down, everybody. There's still an ALA team. But anyway, I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and just talk about all the other ones and stuff like that or whatever. I was like the Magic. I was like, I think that they're still young in a way that I do think that I'm like, you're willing to sit out. Jalen Suggs did not get to fight with them in this playoffs after I think he really started to show more of his offensive game, and he also was a more defensive presence. He's a bigger guy as well. That I think that they did sort of miss that in this game. Just another scorer got to get his shot. I was like his 3-point shot was improving. That I think that I think the rest of the squad really is actually fine. I was like, yes, you do need more out of KCP, and you might get more of that next year. But I was like, he also still does get the goal of being the defensive guy. I was like, the coach in that, I think he'll stick around, but at the same time, he was like, yo, we need to play faster. We need to get more stuff from the bench. And you don't play Cole Anthony really. And I was like, anymore. I was like, you don't have them running the ball when consider the fact that you don't really have any shooters aboard. So to me, I was like, I think that, yeah, but I still think they need a 3-point shooter. Another guy that can also get his own shot too at that. I was like, I think before this year, I talked about them getting, I talked about them getting Tyus Jones, because I just thought that was like good point guard, put them in their spots, shoot the three, that kind of like, to me, I was like, that's what they sort of need at the guard spot. But if we're talking about like on the bench, I was like, they gotta have somebody at least that they believe in on getting their own score. I was like, they got enough long forward type dude that they can interchange and switch out to where it's like they're actually one of the few teams that can switch out on the people. I think that's why they actually play the Celtics fairly well and close in their series. I was like, it just all comes down to the fact that they just don't have offense and they don't get easy shots. Cause I was like, Frogs and who got to improve on the shooting still, and Paulo, I was like, they do a lot of like ISO in a way that just seems like it's a lot for them to get their points. And if they're missing shots, I was like, they're really more of it's a volume type at this point. So it's like that's why I was like, they gotta get somebody else that can shoot, and also somebody I can also get their own shot that they seem to trust a lot more or whatever, and fill out their guard bench more. Cause I was like, I know Gary Harris might get in, and Cole Anthony, he might get in a little bit and stuff like that. They still got Anthony Black, who I think is fine. I was like, he's a big, tall guard, and I think he helps with what they do at the start of it. But I was like, they gotta get more juice out of those spots. Cause I think Carter, Isaac, I was like, if they bring back Franz's brother, the other Wagner, there we go. I was like, then I think they got a good rotation of bigs there. I was like, they all give you something a little different. But yeah, I was like, I don't think they're, I was like, contending for a championship, that's different. But I was like, I don't think they're too far off to basically be how we sort of will now start perceiving the Pacers of basically, it's like, oh, okay, they're at least a second round to a conference championship type of team. I was like, I think the future is a lot more brighter for them than it is for the Heat. I was like, looking at the Heat, especially after the Jimmy Butler stuff. And then I was like, I'm listening to the Lampard show, which is like him and Amin and Sampson, Billy, and all of them talking about the Miami Heat. And it basically, the question is it time to change out from Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra? And I don't think they will change. I was like, but should it be something? I was like, I disagreed with them on basically, it's like they like keeping the status quo and changing for the sake of changing. Like, yeah, you shouldn't change just for the sake of changing, but I don't think that does not also mean that you don't need a new view or fresh pair of eyes and stuff like that on it. But I don't see why you can't do anything like the Celtics, where it's like Brad Stevens got bumped up, and I was like, while yes, he's sort of, I was like and look what happened. I was like, the Celtics basically changed in like basically in a couple years, like of where they are now to where they're at the top. I was like, this whole thing, I was like I was like needing a star and all this other stuff. I was like, they do. I was like, you ain't getting nothing. I was like, Davion Mitchell's a good find. I was like, Bam Adebayo. I was like, and Tyler Hero. They were talking about how they're all-star type players and all NBA type player. But I'm like, also that just because they're also on the East. I was like, was that also more due to Butler? You know, like Tyler Hero did improve and become what we sort of thought he would be when we first seen him when he was going crazy in his first couple years. But at the same time, I was like, he became an all-star in the East. He wouldn't have in the West. That's just sort of how it just sort of is, even if he playing lights out the way he was or whatever. And I was like, Bam is a guy that can be your third guy. I was like, and maybe really at the same time your fourth guy, depending on who are the pieces. I was like, I don't think Tyler Hero. I was like, when they say that he's like Devin Booker, I was like, I think that has been what panned out. But we're also seeing like what level can you really win with as Devin Booker being your top guy. A piece, sure, but I was like, you need pieces. And I was like, the Heat, I don't know if they maneuver themselves in that situation. I was like, there's no telling what they're going to do. So, should they stay in pat? I was like, shake up the roster. I was like, you know, or just wait it out and just see who comes available. I know, I was like, everybody gonna speculate about Giannis. He'd be the perfect fit and all the other stuff down there. But I was like, do you really have enough to actually give for Giannis? Especially how y'all sort of badly played, which is funny enough, the Dame situation of trying to get Dame. So I think that their situation basically where they've been at, I think it's bleak. I don't know if there's really anything of, like, you just hope, I think, at this point of, like, how do you trade and get somebody while also keeping Bam and Hero? I don't think that's possible. So somebody has to go, which means that you got to also have other things around that people will want, and I don't think that they do. So I was like, but as far as I was like, that's where we're really talking about, because there ain't nothing to talk about with the Cleveland series. I was like, they was basically just there was nothing they could do. They were just outmatched. I was like, they didn't get nothing. Like I said, I was like, from Wiggins and any of those players. I was like, you just got Bam and Hero Mitchell right now. I was like, I think there's some fine pieces, you know, Hackers and Ware and stuff like that. That for next year, I was like, Jovic, I was like, that maybe might entice some people. You might have to just work around the fringes, what they've been good at doing. But now that you ain't got Jimmy Butler, I was like, I think it's a little tougher task. And I also disagreed a lot with them of the fact that it's like they were championship players with Jimmy, and I was like, Bam Adebayo, he did the best he could or whatever. Hero wasn't there. Hero, I was like, pretty much since his rookie year and all that other stuff, he's disappointed in the playoff. Let's be honest, or whatever. I was like, this could be encouraging for this year, even though he didn't have a good last game. But I was like, it was all Jimmy Butler, and I was like, to me, the fact that you didn't get anybody else there to pair with Jimmy Butler, because I was like, Jimmy Butler wants his money, he does, but I think at the same time, if you was able to get somebody there where Jimmy Butler didn't feel like where he's like, I need help and y'all not give me no help, y'all are just over here just expecting someone to get better when it's like we see what's happening, I don't think it would have been that big of a deal. But if you're gonna put all this on me, pay me like that person. I think they also played that wrong hand, and I was like, let's be honest, Miami, we talk about them as a destination, and it's like, yeah, for them making trade, but they haven't really gotten anybody except for Jimmy Butler. So you got to ask yourself that about is this actually the right crew? Then we get to the more saddening of the grouping. Kind of like mainly just the East at this point, because the West still got so many other games going on. It's the Bucks, and you know what? I was like, I'm sorry, the Bucks in this situation. I was like, my bad. My brain was being like, yo, this is basically the East edition of the first round exits. Okay, cool. Anyway, talk about another bleak situation. I was like, I guess you can't be so bleak when you still got Giannis. But the roster, I was like, at this point, if Giannis going to go, then hey, that's a situation you got to fight in of itself. But if Giannis stayed, what can you really do to this team? I think Gary Trent Jr. had to earn. I was like, you know, he might try to go out and get more money elsewhere, but I think he sort of earned like a good spot of staying. I think he also works well with Giannis in that way. Kevin Porter Jr., I think that he is going to be out here getting big money because he got the stuff. The reason why he was a veteran minimum type of player. Anyway, but I was like, he could get buckets, and I was like, he was one of the few people that I think actually came to really play with Giannis in this whole thing. I was like, Jesus Christ, how much Pat Connaughton has failed. Has failed. Because I was like, he used to be someone on the starting unit to somebody that's over here playing with the bench. And I'm not even talking about the bench, like, you know, like Portis and, you know, nothing like that. I'm talking about the bench, like the scrub, like the one, like, well, shouldn't call them scrub because they're doing better than me. But I was like, the dudes at the end of the bench that had get no burn unless there's some type of blowout. Jeez. But I was like, Kuzma, this didn't seem to work here. And I was like, hey, you really, I was like, you might give it. I was like, you really kind of, I don't think can really straight flip him again. So you're going to have to just see how he goes next year. Dame's not going to be there next year. You're going to have to figure out which one of Lopez and Portis do you get rid of. I was like, I don't think you get rid of both of them, but I think you do have to make a decision on which one. And I was like, to me, I think you sort of get rid. I was like, I think Portis sort of is the guy that you sort of stick with. I think you could get something out of Lopez more than Portis to me. I was like, Lopez is still a big man. I was like, he can still play decent D, even though he's older. He can still shoot the three, even though it ain't the same crazy clip that he was doing beforehand. But I was like, to me, I was like, somewhere we'll enjoy that. Lakers, maybe. But, you know, I was like, but I think you got to get something for him, and you just got to get some youth here. You just got to get some. I was like, I don't think you start a rebuild. I was like, I mean, if you get rid of Giannis, yes, you get a rebuild. But I was like, this is going to be a retooling, but you got to figure out which type of people you are able to get in the long term. I was like, but you're also really strapped because Dame's contract counts against the books. And who can you really go with? I was like, I don't think you could trade him while injured. I was like, I think the team has to okay it, but I don't know where there's anywhere for it to go. So so it's sort of like how they did this year again, where they was over here just sort of getting like a little bit of pieces where they got DeLon Wright, Gary Trent at a low bargain. I was like, that's sort of what they're going to have to do again with this team. And I was like, I don't know where that really puts you at all. I was like, after you gave away Middleton, you sort of gave away your biggest bargaining chip. And I was like, I said, I don't know what you're going to be able to get for Kuzma. I was like, maybe you'll be able to get him for pennies on the dollar. That's, you know, somewhere, you know, man, I was like, I don't know where that could go. But should Giannis basically ask out? I don't think that he will. I think he's willing to. I think he will give this I think he'll give it another. I think he'll give it another year. I think that Giannis is really loyal to the point that he's not going to really force his way out, even though I know he wants to win. But I was like, I think he just has. I was like, cause I think he does see that that the organization do try. Like, had it been working? No, but I was like, a little bit more of you willing to get somebody for trying than if it always worked. You can't help that there's been injury several years or whatever. I was like, but also, where is it that he can really go? I was like, I know we already seen the Oklahoma City Thunder because they got the best package. I was like, the Nets. I was like, possibly as well, depending on, especially if they get flagged, that might be a bigger spot. After that, you start getting bleak of like where he can go to give you the good amount of trade assets, and I think they will also try to do good by Giannis by sending him somewhere He wants to win a championship. So I was like, you're going to have to send him somewhere that had a decent chance of winning. And I was like, I don't know if it's as easy as it used to be. The Rockets. And I was like, in another spot, especially with his apron stuff, I think it'd just be so much harder that I think that he might just go ahead and just play it out or whatever. I was like, Dane got still, I think, 2 more years on his contract. One of the player options, you know, he's going to take that regardless if he come back healthy or not, because you just can't give up $50 million like that. Yeah, but I think Giannis sticks it out, because I feel like he's one of those dudes where he's like, yo, put that on my back and I'm just gonna have to take it or whatever. I was like, but it sort of sucks, because I was like, to me, I was like, I feel like he should be talked about like how Jokic is, and we over here being like, man, they got to do something with the supporting cast that Jokic had. And I was like, he got a better supporting cast than Giannis had, but nobody really said too much about that. But anyway, that's each of the teams, and I guess what they should do, they're gonna have, I was like, man, the Bucks are gonna have to, I was like, put something together. I was like the Magic got the best out of all of them, because I was like, they got young pieces for all their players, and I was like, they got stuff they can do, as long as they just don't mess it up. But anyway, let me know what you all think about each of these teams. Until then, we'll see how the rest of these first round go for, I guess, the Western side, because that's what's left. Anyway, till then. Oh, yeah, I mean, Knicks Pistons. Sorry. Peace. I'm out.